So, welcome back once again to another 1v1 between myself and JMonster in Total War Warhammer 2 with the Steel Faith edition. And I think last time I forgot to disable the resampling actually, which is a bit of a pain, but nonetheless, I do appreciate doing some of these slightly quicker Warhammer battles just because my time is quite short these days. So I really want to put out at least some content every 2 days if I can possibly help it. Regardless, we do have the High Elves, played by JMonster over here, and I'm playing as probably my favourite faction in Warhammer 2 at the moment, which is the Skaven. And we'll go through JMonster's army first of all, of course, and his lord is a princess mounted on a great eagle. I do like the lighting effects that Reshade does offer. Hopefully it survives the processing that YouTube puts it under this time. But yes, the princess is of course a bit of a ranged lord, and it's not often you see the High Elven lords mounted on great eagles. Usually High Elven players will stump up a little bit more for the dragon, simply because the dragon breath attacks are so powerful in the game at the moment. They're almost certainly the most powerful tool in many factions' arsenals, and the High Elves of course have got multiple dragons that they can use. The eagle is faster however, and it does of course offer, well, it means you have more money to spend elsewhere. He also has 3 units of these guys, the White Lions of Crace. These guys against the Skaven will do very well against stuff like clan rats. They'll just butcher them. And they should do pretty well against storm vermin as well, honestly, with their great axes. Over here as well, he also has a noble, which is an anti-large, pretty good melee lord. He's not mounted on anything, so he's just going to be there to help the main line hold. The Skaven doesn't have much in the way of large other than the Doom Wheels and the Rat Ogres anyway, but it will still help shore up the line. He's also got 3 units of these guys, which are the standard archers. These guys are quite squishy, but they do have a lot of range, and they should be pretty good against the Skaven. Most Skaven units are pretty light on HP, so you should be able to whittle them down pretty quickly with High Elven archers. Most notably though, what he spent most of his money on, it would seem, is 3 units of these pretty scary fellas. He's got 3 units of the Dragon Princes. Now the Dragon Princes are not anti-large cavalry, but they have an enormous charge bonus, and they are also anti-infantry. And if the Skaven do struggle against one thing, it is fast-moving anti-infantry ground cavalry. So I may be in a little bit of trouble with these 3 Dragon Princes, but I have got tools, hopefully, that can deal with that. And then his front line over here is, I think, 4 units of the standard High Elven Spearmen. Again, it's a pretty good front line because they are fairly cheap, at least, well, for Elven standards, they're fairly cheap. And, you know, other than that, you know, you would have to stump up for White Lions. So to have a few numbers to help combat the Skaven is pretty important, and over there he's got more Dragon Princes. So now we'll move on to my army. I do start on this pretty severe hill, but the Skaven, you know, you do have to come forward as the Skaven to really take advantage of their numbers. So over here I've got 3 units of the Plague Monk Censer Bearers. These guys are going to be very good. They contaminate the enemy, so they're going to lose leadership by fighting them. And they are also anti-armor, which you're going to need a lot of against the High Elves. They have got very good armor values, and the Censer Bearers are the best Skaven infantry for dealing with that. I've also got 3 units of the standard Plague Monks, maybe a little bit more of a less optimal pick in this matchup, simply because the Plague Monks are much better off against lightly armoured targets. They're quite similar to Flagellants in many ways, only more effective in melee, and they can be broken. They do have Frenzy though, which is quite nice. So I've got 3 of these mixed in with the Censer Bearers essentially. Bit of a mixed front line. It should do quite a lot of damage with the Censer Bearers, and the Plague Monks won't fall apart quite as quickly as Clan Rats, so I do have that going for me. I also have this guy over here, which is a Warlock Engineer. This is pretty much a must against the High Elves, simply for the Howling Warp Gale. It means you'll be able to pin down dragons and flyers for your artillery to hit it. I've also got the Warpstone armor, so he is very cheap with only the Howling Warp Gale and the Warpstone armor. The Warpstone armor gives him a Mortis Engine-like effect while in melee, so hopefully that means my Plague Monks will be able to trade quite efficiently with those Spearmen up the front. I've also got this, of course, the Warp Lightning Cannon. Again, kind of a must in this matchup, simply because you can pin down flyers with the Howling Warp Gale and then shoot it quite nicely with the Warp Lightning Cannon. It'll also be pretty good at sniping out some cav. My lord is the Plague Rat, Lord Skrolk. I think he's probably the slightly more optimal pick over Queek, even if I do quite like Queek as a lord. But Skrolk has got, of course, the Law of Plague, and I've dropped a few of the spells, but most of the spells are in his arsenal. So he also contaminates foes, and he's also pretty good in melee, but the Liber Bubonicus is one of the main reasons to bring him. Be able to do some very nice damage to some single target entities. I've got 1 unit of these guys, the Poisoned Wind Globadiers. These guys are anti-large, so hopefully if I can pin down any flyers. I was expecting dragons, to be honest with you, so I brought these guys for that, but they will still do a very good job against the Great Eagle, and hopefully they can get a few of their volleys off into the Dragon Princes, which I believe have gold shields in this version. I've also got, protecting my artillery back here, a couple of units of Storm Vermin Halberdiers. These guys, pretty much the Skaven's only answer to a lot of heavy cavalry. The Rat Ogres don't do terribly, but they tend to fall apart pretty quickly, whereas the Storm Vermin Halberdiers hold their lines a little bit more easily. And then back here I've got 2 units of the the Death Globe Bombardiers, the anti-infantry variant, because I thought that my infantry would probably need quite a bit of help if he brought Phoenix Guard or Swordmasters, but he hadn't brought them, so 2 units of these guys is probably a bit overkill. But what certainly isn't overkill is 2 Doom Wheels. Now, Doom Wheels are probably my favourite unit in any Total War game that there has ever been, because if there's one thing that I hate, and I'm sure you've picked up on that by now, it's being skirmished into oblivion. The Doom Wheel makes that basically an impossibility, because you can just plough through enemy lines to get at their archers. They are vulnerable to cavalry, however. I think that the Dragon Princes, if they get a hold of these guys, it's going to be a bad time, but if I can keep my Globadiers nice and close, hopefully this will go quite well. So you can see that the High Elves sort of moving in. I'm also going to be moving down the hill. I'm going to be sort of trying to move my Warp Lightning Cannon into a position that I can shoot the High Elven Lord. So if we just get in a little closer to the High Elven advance, I am going to come down off the hill, don't worry, I'm not going to hill camp. It would be a pretty bad idea to hill camp anyway, considering most of my units are pretty offensive focused, particularly my Plague Monks. The Plague Monks will get ripped apart by the archers because they've got like no armour, and you know, the Censer Bearers are quite expensive, although in Steel Faith they aren't as expensive as the Storm Vermin, I don't believe. So they can be quite an optimal choice indeed. If we have a look here, we can see that the Warlock Engineer and Lord Strolk following in the Plague Monks. The Plague Monks are getting in a bit, but you can see I do pop the Howling Warp Gale, which does mean that my Lord is under attack. This is from Jmonster's perspective, because this was back when my things weren't working. Unfortunately, one of my Censer Bearers is taking a lot of arrow fire. Fortunately, however, I am able to engage with these Dragon Princes just ploughing into the back of more of my Censer Bearers, and I do need my Censer Bearers to be able to make a dent on a lot of the High Elven infantry. The White Lions of Krace in particular will do a ton of damage, but you can see already the Doom Wheel back here is just ploughing the way through the archers, and this is going to allow my Plague Monks to do their work, which is going to be very important. You can see that the Dragon Princes are sort of heading up the hill, but I do have my Globadiers and my Warp Lightning Cannon and my Halberdiers. They're the Deathwind Globes. I think I just heard as well, yep. I did summon up a unit of summoned Clan Rats to sort of prevent these White Lions from getting into the fight quite so quickly. I hope that this manages to survive YouTube compression, because it does look very nice, at least on my screen. And you can see here that I do summon the Plague Vortex as well, because I don't really care about my own troops here. They're just a unit of summoned Clan Rats, but if I can get a nice amount of damage off onto these White Lions, it's going to pay some pretty heavy dividends for me. So if I go into a bit of slow motion over here, you can see that the Doom Wheel's still doing its work on the archers, just making sure the archers can't really get into a nice firing position. The Noble is lagging behind a little bit back here. You can see that up here, the Dragon Princes went deep. They wanted to shut down the Warp Lightning Cannon, which is understandable, but they're now sandwiched in between 2 units of Storm Vermin Halberdiers, and this is going to be bad news for them, because as soon as they start to lose their martial mastery, they do lose a lot of their effectiveness in melee, and the Storm Vermin Halberdiers are no pushovers either. Meanwhile, if we have a look around, you can see the Princess has actually fallen back away, because the Globadiers were here and the Warp Lightning Cannon had already done quite a lot of damage. But you can see actually that the front line engagement is not going too badly for me, but it could be going slightly better. Again, most of Jmonster's army is tied up in these Dragon Princes, and he is getting some rather nice rear charges onto my army. The Censer Bearers, however, are doing a fantastic job against the Spears. The Spearmen don't stand a chance against Plague Monk Censer Bearers. Even the standard Plague Monks will do not too badly against the Spearmen, to be honest with you. Really what he needed to do was to get these White Lions into battle, because then my Plague Monks and Censer Bearers would have a much harder time in getting through this particular, well, getting through the line that he'd set up. Regardless, we shall now go back to normal speed, and you can see that the Dragon Princes are still in pretty rude health, but so are my Doom Wheels, and my Doom Wheels are essentially going to be able to rout these archers pretty soon. My Clan Rats that were summoned are actually running away though. You can see that so is his front line. His front line has basically collapsed, so all of my Plague Monks and Plague Rats are coming in. My Warlock Engineer is here though, and you can see that this effect, this sort of aura that's over all of the High Elven units, is the Warpstone armor, so their HP is ticking down while they're in melee with this guy. If they focus him down though, he's not going to stand much of a chance, because he is quite squishy. The Princess is coming back. Over here I've had much less success, I must say. Where the initial charge came in, that was really bad news for me. But the Clan Rats, I'm going to try and get them over here to shore up the line. The Dragon Princes were able to kill my Plague Monks, I should say, and the Censer Bearers. But back here you can see the archers have not been able to get into the battle ever since these Doom Wheels are just ploughing through that right down the line there. So a lot of damage done to those archers, and their leadership is starting to waver. You can see that my warriors are rallying, apparently. Up here, my position on the hill is still pretty secure. My warp lightning cannon is still firing, but the princess is coming, and so is the dragon princes, or so are the dragon princes. We get in nice and close here on this eagle. The eagle is going to do a lot of damage to the warp lightning crew, of course. And so will the dragon princes, wherever they may be. Actually, the dragon princes charge downhill to try and kill the bombardiers, but I do actually have some sensor bearers that were retreating, and they actually returned to the battle, I believe. The rats are kind of all over the place, which is as you expect from the Skaven. I'm also going to be throwing some poison wind globes. That anti-large damage is going to do quite a lot of work on that princess, and if I can kill the High Elven Lord, this is going to be my battle to lose, essentially. But these dragon princes are still doing some heavy lifting, and they're just carving through my plague monks. Lord Skrolk is still in good health, however, and he's just in here, in amongst a unit of plague monks. Very much a Clan Pestilens inspired build, this one. And we can see the Doom Wheel. All of his archers are pretty much routing off. I've got some returning units of sensor bearers, which is definitely not the sort of thing the High Elven infantry wants to see. His noble is back here though, and I do need to be careful of Skrolk because he is getting a little bit isolated. But really the problem that he has is his cavalry was just not able to get a hold of my warp lightning cannon. I do think that what he should have done was to use his cavalry on my Doom Wheels. I don't think he was too eager to do that, but the Dragon Princes will beat the Doom Wheels if you cycle charge them. And honestly, you need to shut down Skaven Doom Wheels because they're so good. They're not quite as powerful as Dragon Breath attacks in the game meta at the moment, but they're pretty darn close. I mean, they just munch through everything. It's like having a chariot that isn't annoying to use. I actually did use the Liber Bubonicus on this Dragon Prince unit over here because I was not in range of the Princess to use it, and Skrolk wasn't going to be able to get up the hill to use it effectively. So the Dragon Prince is going over here. They are still, you know, that was a lot of damage actually that Liber Bubonicus did. Now they're in melee with the WARPSTONE armour. So you can see that I've got some sensor bearers protecting my Warlock Engineer and Skrolk. And then if we look up the hill, you can see that Dragon Princes are rallying, but I do have the Plague Monk sensor bearers and the Storm Vermin with Halberdiers chasing them down. And the enemy Lord is not looking too healthy. The White Lions are still pretty healthy over here, but of course they are being chased down by Storm Vermin. And there are archers coming back, but the Doom Wheels are just basically finishing up his units that are returning. None of the High Elven units are really going to get much of a chance to return. I am summoning up another unit of Clan Rats as well. That was basically what I used most of my Winds of Magic on, other than that one Plague Vortex. And you can see that the Dragon Prince is running away. They don't want to get bogged down with the Sensor Bearers and the Clan Rats. They really want to be getting into my Lord, I think. You can actually see over here, I think this is the Noble. And yes, it is. He's surrounded by a Warlock Engineer, Lord Skrolk with his mighty flail, and some standard Plague Monks. You can see that we're coming into the final minute of the battle now, and my Doom Wheels are still in almost perfect health. Taken some damage, but I think they have actually run out of ammunition, so I can only really use them as a battering ram or something to clog up the archers at this point. You can see actually that his Lord is still getting into my Warp Lightning Cannon, and two of them have been destroyed. So the Princess on the Eagle has been able to use her speed to pretty decent effect, but unfortunately, you can see just in the background over here, the Storm Vermin are on the way. It is a very nice looking game, this, though. See this little Skaven rat here on the front with his sort of looking glass, the aimer. But here comes the Storm Vermin with Halberdiers, and as soon as they get into melee against the Princess, if they are able to, it's going to be bad news for her. But it does look like she's going to be able to get away, unfortunately for me. But the battle is pretty much lost at this point for the High Elves. You can see that all of their troops are routing. The contamination from the Plague Monks is going to make sure that they can't really return. And the Noble is also being pushed off the field. He's pretty much the only one left, and Lord Skrolk is going to make sure that he routes. The Princess also routing, and that's going to be it. So I make up for my defeat in the other battle with the Lizardmen by defeating the High Elves with the Skaven. Possibly would have been quite different if JMonster had mounted the Princess on something like a Star Dragon, because that can be really devastating. I think that he also probably should have shut down my Doom Wheels with his Dragon Princes. They would have done the job, particularly if you had some fire from the archers coming in there as well. But the front line fight, I think that the infantry fight went in my favour because the spearmen were just not able to stand up to the sensor bearers. If we have a look at what the kills were like, the spearmen got a lot of kills. Most of that was probably on the standard Plague Monks. You can see the sensor bearers getting a decent amount of kills. They did get charged, some of them, so they're not really pulling their weight there. The Halberdiers were able to protect my Globadiers and my Warp Lightning Cannon. The Globadiers not getting a ton of kills, but they were firing at Dragon Princes and the enemy Lord. Of course, my Doom Wheels just cleaning house. The Warlock Engineer getting a decent Howling Warp Gale off, and then just basically ticking down the enemy HP with his Warpstone armor. Lord Skrolk getting a decent amount of kills, mostly from that Plague Vortex, I imagine. And of course the High Elves getting a lot of kills all around. The White Lions, very good choice against the Skaven, I would say, most of the time. The only thing they would struggle against would be the Censer Bearers. The Dragon Prince is getting a lot of kills from those rear charges as well onto my Plague Monks. The standard Plague Monks were probably not the most optimal pick. I probably could have gotten rid of them, gotten another Censer Bearer, and maybe gotten a few fodder units to prevent those rear charges. But ultimately, in the end, it didn't matter because the frontline fight, the Spearmen were just not able to have the impact on my Plague Monks that they needed to, and the Doom Wheels were able to run roughshod all over his back lines. So yeah, it was a pretty decent match, though. It was, you know, for the first half it was pretty close, but eventually the Skaven numbers told. So yeah, a decent 1v1. I would urge you to check out JMonster's channel. I think he's got a special cut. Well, at least today, I think he's got his 2,000 subscriber live stream special thing. But obviously, by the time this comes out, that will be a thing of the past. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.